Alright, jabronis, you've seen all the kind of, I guess, update parts here of the draft, like things that I've kind of picked up along the way, but this is pretty much now the draft recap, where I go more into detail. You saw how plans changed, and I have eventually, come up with the team I want to use this season for NPL. It's definitely a different team than what I would maybe normally use, potentially. Maybe a bit of a different verd draft to what you guys are used to, but in a way I'm kind of keen for that. I think that, it's good to show differences, but there are a few people who are a little bit disappointed with some of my choices, but I will try and justify them as best as possible. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. So, I had first overall pick of the entire NPL draft, and I decided to pick Tapu Koko, otherwise known as Tapu Chungus. If you haven't figured it out already, my team has a Chungus theme, and just get with it. So Koko was like a no-brainer first choice for me. I think right now it is the best mon in draft format by a good margin. Well, I wouldn't say a good margin, but it's just definitely with Z moves, it is looking like it's going to be an absolute threat. Obviously being able to hit on both sides of the spectrum is huge. Having overall decent stats, obviously not the best defensively, but it doesn't really need to be. It's more of an offensive mon. The speed's really good. Attack and special attack are obviously great, and like I said, the access to Z moves is fantastic. One of the rare electric types with access to both Thunderbolt and U-Turn, which is phenomenal. I had a lot of ideas when it came to Tapu Koko, like so many different things that I could pair it with. As you saw probably from the initial planning, I think I had like Hydreigon and all these other things that I was planning to pair with it. But fortunately, I guess for me, a core came back to me that was something that I hadn't used for a long time. And funnily enough, this is like one of the two leagues where I have drafted it recently, and that is Sand. Because like, Sand is just a lot of fun. It causes a lot of prep from your opponents actually. Because with T-Tar it's quite funny. There's like times with T-Tar where I might bring Sand or I might not, because with Unnerve it means that mons with like Cobbleberry just aren't going to be able to stop Pursuit Tar, which is really, really nice. As well as, just in general, sometimes Drill won't need the Sand, or I may run like Scarf Drill with Sand Force to bust through things, who knows. But Tyranitar was a pretty... Drill plus T-Tar felt really good with Koko. Koko, obviously, the three of them don't really deal with bulky ground types well, but as you'll see from the next three picks that I have ways around bulky ground types. I guess I just like T-Tar plus Drill. They're both fantastic rockers, and T-Tar is just super underrated. Like, obviously its speed set isn't great, but I feel just as a mon in general, Tyranitar on its own is going to be fantastic. Its depth of mood pool is insane, and even the special attack being 95, that does open avenues there. It has the same special attack as Tapu Koko, so that's really nice. And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna like prattle on about why certain things look really good compared to others. I just think that, T-Tar in itself just looks super, super solid, and it was just really hard to refuse picking it up. I just felt like it would have been... The Sand Core just felt really good with Koko, and Drill itself obviously with Sand Rush, Sand Force, even Mold Breaker sometimes is great too, because that eliminates things like Levitate, so EQ spam becomes really good. Drill doesn't appreciate bulky grass or bulky ground types, but as you can see, like I said, from the next two picks coming up, I can deal with both of those types very easily and effectively. The attack set's obviously immense from Drill. It is a premier spinner for my team, which is fantastic. And honestly, it's just, again, it just felt like a no-brainer. Like with T-Tar, pairing Koko. The cool thing I liked about Drill plus Koko too was that both of them don't appreciate bulky grounds or bulky grass types, but both of them have the capacity to break through one of those two typings, if not both of them, in potential matchups, to the point then where the other one can break a lot easier. For example, if my opponent has what's a good example of a bulky ground type, like a Hippowdon, and Drill can get up to like an SD, or it's just like a Life Orb, and I can go through with like a really powerful Iron Head or something, or like if I SD up and it's like a +2 Iron Head, it basically brings Hippo down to like say 20%. and then it knocks out my drill. Then obviously Coco can just come in after that and pick apart the hippo, and like also Coco with the Z move can just bust through the bulky grass types, potentially with things like Z Brave Bird or even Z Nature's Madness, which can basically just, you know, render a lot of checks pretty useless. But like I said, I do have ways around the bulky grass and ground. Primary way is going to be something like Amoonguss. Amoonguss, if Explorer is probably not going to get used that often. Regenerator is the best one, obviously, because it restores HP. Fantastic bulk all over, and decent offensive stats too. I think offensive Amoonguss may make some appearances. Obviously, my favourite variant is Assault Vest Amoonguss. Hard not to love a good Assault Vest on a Pokemon, but Amoonguss just is a really solid pairing with a Sand Core. I wish I'd kind of drafted Slowbro with it. I think it would have helped my team a lot in hindsight, having both of them on the team, because obviously Amoonguss is just such a good Spadefmon, and then Slowbro would have been a fantastic Fizdefmon, and would have paired with everything else that I have. Like, those two together basically checks every bulky ground type in the game, I want to say. But at the same time, I also don't regret the choices that I have made, because some of them are preference over maybe overall team balance, if that makes sense. But Amoonguss, you know, felt really solid, and it's just exactly what I needed for the team. Then I got old mate Buzzwole. For those who remember, when I was in NPL Minors, I would say Buzzwole was my favourite Pokemon to use on the entire team. It was one, I think, of the 3 Ultra Beasts that I had on that team, and it was just awesome. Whether it was like a Scarf set breaking through stuff, or, you know, like a bulky variant being a Zygarde check, a lot of times Buzzwole was just a lot of fun to use. It is a really solid bulky ground check, like I said. The only like bulky ground, or inverted commas bulky ground, that I have to worry about is like a Lando, but at the same time Buzzwole could just run, you know, Cobra Berry or Protect, because then, you know, Lando might have Fly, but, you know, with Protect I can kind of deal with that, I feel. So I'm not overly concerned there. Beast Boost obviously is amazing for this mon, as most of the time you're going to be getting the attack boost. The Spadef isn't great, but you can kind of cover that with a decent HP stat, as well as the fact that, yeah, Buzzwole is weak to flying, but I do have, you know, a Coco, a Tyranitar, and a Drill as it stands right now, so flying spam I'm not too worried about. And with the defensive bulk there, it makes up for Amoonguss maybe lacking some. They are both weak to Psychic types, but I do have the Psychic Killer in Tyranitar, as well as Drill that can take them on too. So I feel like, you know, the overall balance isn't too bad as it stands right now. And then moving on, we have probably one of the hyper picks that I did. I really wanted Azumarill for the longest time. Probably will show huge power, not thick fat, but I wanted Azu for the longest time because I don't know, why is it showing 0 attack there? That's weird. Anyway, Azu was just a mon that I hadn't actually really used before in draft format, and I wanted to give it a try. This was where I could have picked Slowbro, potentially, or Mega Slowbro for that regard, but I decided on going with Azu because I just felt that it was such a strong addition to the team, and, you know, huge power is just so good, but also like the double fairy pairing with Coco is really nice, because again, it's another mon that baits in those bulky grass types, and with a Belly Drum set, or even like a Sap Sipper trapping set, it can just eliminate them, and it opens the door for things like Drill, Coco, Buzzwole to just run through and put in a ton of work. So really solid there, not to mention just it actually is a surprisingly good bulky water. With 180-80, it can actually deal with a lot of things, not to mention if I wanted to I could run, say, like Thick Fat, and then it becomes like the ultimate fire type check if I really needed it to be, but at the same time I do have, like I said, the T-Tar, so 2 solid checks out of fire types is good with me. Decent options with priority. I was tempted to go with like a Z move on this as well, but I decided against it. But yeah, like lately, Azumarill did also get access to Liquidation, which is a fantastic, like it's just a bit stronger than Waterfall, which is nice. It does actually get access, I believe. No, it only gets access to one screen, but Azu for me is just a pick where like, I haven't used it before, and I really wanted to give it a try. Slowbro probably would have been better for the balance of the team, but Azu was more just like a pick where it was something that I saw and I was like, yeah, I haven't used Azu before. I'd love to be able to use it. So I'm keen to see how it goes on this team. I feel like on paper it seems really strong, but we have to see how it goes in the battles. But anyway, I'm going to pause it now because I'm going to flip over to the other picks that I had. Alright, so we're over the other picks now, and the next one I had was Kyurem. I really wanted Kyurem for the longest time, definitely. as my dragon. I just felt that with the Sand Core, it was the dragon that stood out the most. There were definitely some other ones that were tempting, like Dragonite was still around there, but then I was like, multi-scale's probably not going to be that great with Sand Up. And Kyurem just fit the team really nicely on paper. The overall stats of Kyurem are just insane. The pressure ability is fantastic. This is also really good because this is another bulky ground and bulky grass breaker, which I was really happy with, as well as a bulky water breaker because of the fact that, you know, subtoxic with pressure is super hard for a lot of them to be able to break. So that was really good. And overall, like, the stats are just insane. You know, you can potentially abuse that attack stat too with Kyurem. It definitely has like a lot of underrated moves that people don't realize either, that I'm very much keen to try and show off this season. But it was just a no-brainer. Like, for the stats that it has and the pricing that it was, it made a lot of sense, and it just adds extra bulk already to my bulky team. Granted, like, my team doesn't really appreciate hazards too much, but Drool can spin, Coco defog, and as you can see coming up, I have 2 other defoggers that I have access to, so I don't feel so bad about it. Now, Hawlucha was the one that kind of changed a lot of my draft, because there was the option to take, instead of Mega Pidgeot, Mega Slowbro, and then instead of Lopunny plus Hawlucha, I could have taken Alolan Raichu plus Stoutland. But, funnily enough, Alolan Raichu actually got sniped. So, because of that, I actually did end up going with the Hawlucha plan then, and obviously Hawlucha makes a lot of sense with this team, not only because of, you know, I kind of liked having a flying type to be able to deal with some stuff, but also because of Unburden. So, speed is doubled on held item lost. This combines really well with Electric Seed. It knew. It went Ellie. It knew I was going to type in Electric Seed. So, Electric Seed, it raises my defense by 1 stage. So, this coincides with Tapu Koko's Electric Terrain. Basically what it means is normally Hawlucha comes in against a physically offensive mon. This Electric Seed pops and gives it a +1 defense boost, and then I proceed to either click Swords Dance or I click Bulk Up. One of these 2 options, and then normally the last 2 moves are like just the combination of Acrobatics and High Jump Kick, or potentially Drain Punch. But I can also have Roost as a move as well, or Sub. Anyway, the point is that Hawlucha can basically just like set up and clean teams. I was talking with Gypsy about Hawlucha, and because I was talking like whether I should get it or not, and Gypsy said like it's a good mon with Electric Terrain, but it's also very brain dead in the sense that like it can just win games, but it doesn't really require much prep work. You just kind of slap on some moves and some EVs, and it's like, yep, Hawlucha can just win now. But it's really important that like if I do use Hawlucha in this way, I have to use Coco in the right way too. The cool thing too with Hawlucha though, right, is the other abilities it gets access to, because obviously Unburden is great, but if your opponent's expecting Unburden with like the Electric Seed, and they bring say like a Claire for, you know, just a random example, Pyukumuku or Quag, I can just run Mold Breaker as well, which is nice. Limber is even nice to prevent paralysis. Like, Unburden obviously is cool to double the speed, but there's a lot of times, like, because of Lucha having base 118 speed, that I don't even need to do an Electric Seed play, and there is the opportunity to run, like, the Citrus Berry set and other stuff where I can run, like, Mold Breaker and take advantage of a lot of mons in that sense. So that's really cool as well. I like that option. The other cool thing about Lucha is I believe it does get access to Defog, so another Defogger there. And yeah, the speed's just super good, gets access to U-turn, and it's really swell. And I decided to go with Bird Spam. I think it was Aster J that actually convinced it to me, because the plan to go with Mega Bro plus Azu and then grab Alolan Raichu plus Stoutland meant that, like, my speed without weather or terrain was quite slow. Whereas with this, with Pidgeot plus Hawlucha, even without the terrain being up or sand being up, I have 3 mons that are over base 115, which is really nice. It puts a lot of pressure on my opponent to run Scarves, and if my opponent's being forced to run Pokemon that have like Choice Scarf, it means that they're maybe missing out on running a more optimal set. So forcing that's really nice. And Mega Pidgeot is a Mega that I used for a little bit at the end of the PMC, but I wasn't really in. It went into a lot of matchups that weren't good. But I feel like in this team it could be really nice. Obviously, it doesn't appreciate so like bulky rock types, but that just baits in things like, you know, my Hawlucha, my Buzzwole, my Azumarill, and my Excadrill to kind of just blow them all pretty much away. No Guard Hurricanes are going to be incredibly strong, as well as like Pidgeot actually gets some surprisingly nice moves, like Pursuit for example can be really nice in some situations. Tailwind is so nice for my team. And Work Up is the other one that is super tempting because of the fact that it raises both attack and special attack. So if they go into a big fat special wall like Chansey, I could be running like Return to be able to bop that pretty much straight away. So it's definitely got some options. U-Turn's obviously great, but mainly going to be clicking Hurricane with this thing and just blowing things away. That is the plan. The Bird Spam is also really nice because obviously Hawlucha is stronger on the physical side and Pidgeot is stronger on the special side, so it can knock back electric checks. So like even electric mons that come in, like obviously they can take the Hurricane, but there's a good chance of going outspeed most of the electric types I face against, unless it's a Jolteon. I think Jolteon's the only one that outspeeds me, off the top of my head, and Zeraora. Jolteon and Zeraora are the only two that outspeed me, and I do have, like I said, the combination of, say, like a Moongus and Excadrill that can effectively deal with most electric types, as well as, like, I guess, T-Tar can be quite fat and put in work there too. But I really, like, Pidgeot wasn't something that I'd considered initially. Like, another one that I actually considered instead of, I was actually tempted to combine Mega Pidgeot plus Lopunny into Charizard Y, because I felt like Charizard Y's breaking power was really nice in this team. I felt like it paired well with the Sand, but at the same time, Mega Pidgeot's outright speed and also the potential for Z-Move Lopunny was far too tempting, and Z-Move Lopunny is surprisingly effective. So Lopunny actually has really solid defense stats as well as speed. Q-Charm is probably something I'm not going to use that much, but Klutz is a very tempting one because, as it says, the Pokemon's held item had no effect, which means I can use things like Switcheroo while holding an Assault Vest. And why this is cool is because if I'm going up against, like I said, you know, a Chansey or just a really fat wall, being able to Switcheroo an Assault Vest onto that is super duper nice. It gets access to a ton of cool moves, like a lot of setup moves, because it basically goes off of like a regular Lopunny, but like Cosmic Power into Baton Pass is really cool. Fake Out is really nice as well. Power Up Punch, lots of options here for regular Lopunny, and definitely going to be a solid 1.1. And like I said, it is also a Z-move user, which is really solid because as you can see, like I'll scroll down through the moves, you can kind of see, I suppose, what I'm dealing with. But Lopunny has access to a lot of moves and a lot of options when it comes to Z-move capability, which is really good. I'm really happy with that. I don't know whether the team maybe is as optimal as it could have been. That is debatable. It definitely could have been better, potentially, if I'd gone with the Mega Zam plan, or, you know, if I hadn't gone with Sand. It potentially could have been more balanced. It's really hard to say, but at the same time, I don't regret drafting the team that I have. I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to use this season. And I'm very excited to see, you know, how I can actually perform with this team. It's definitely different to what I would normally run. Like, I've never run Hawlucha before. I don't believe I've run a Azumarill before. Never run regular Lop. And, you know, other ones that I have used before, I haven't used them in a long time. Coco I've never used before. So, a lot of exciting things. I'm really excited for this season. I have no idea if I'm playing the first week, but what I'm actually interested to see more than anything is actually how the analysts view my team, because obviously it starts off really well, but then I miss out on getting certain mons, so I don't know if they're going to see this as a good team or a bad team, how they're going to rank this team initially. But again, like last season in the NPL, the last few seasons, I've drafted teams and the analysts have kind of said like, oh, this isn't really like the best team, it's okay, but it's not, you know, setting the world on fire. But I'm here to prove, I guess, that I can, you know, still hang with the best of them, and that's the plan, at least at this point. I'm keen. Like, my record so far for the NPL is that every season I've played in, I've made playoffs. Now, technically last season doesn't count because I did leave early, but if I had stayed, I would have automatically made playoffs from the position that I was in if I just stuck around. So, definitely feel like I got my head screwed on now, and I'm keen. There's a lot of cool new coaches, but I will say, if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like it's not gonna be as highly competitive as it used to be. I feel like, you know, losing people like Gypsy and Maddie, it's not as competitive a league. I think it's still gonna be fun. I'm still gonna try because I was ranked, I think, 17th in draft league players, and my plan this year is to push my way into the top 10, and I need to do that by performing well in all the leagues that I'm in. So yeah, I'm gonna give that a red hot crack and you know, deliver results hopefully. So yeah, if you guys are keen for the Tampa Frogadiers draft here for season 9 of the NPL, let me know. You know, like the video, comment down below if you're happy with the chunguses that I have chosen. Like I said, I have Z Coco plus Z Loputty as my Z users, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really hoping, you know, we can do well with this team, but we'll wait and see. My name's Verd.